Hi everyone, welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. So in today's video we're going to be renovating my favourite villager's home, Ruby. This has been requested by a lot of you for a while now, so I'm really excited to decorate her home. As you can see, it's nice and rainy today on the land, but it's still nice and sunny. I'm outside of Ruby's house right now and I thought I'd show you how I've decorated the outside of her home. I put Ruby's house on the highest cliff on my island so she can be closer to the moon. She has a lovely white moon chair outside her house, and to the right side of her house I gave her a little tea table with carrot cake, even a little pink mug with a carrot on. I just had so much fun decorating this area to be carrot themed. I also have some bunny figurines that remind me of her, and carrots growing out of the ground and scattered around the place, and also a little alarm clock on some pillows outside her house because I really wanted to mix in a lot of themes with not only the Moon Rabbit story, but I also wanted to incorporate themes of Alice in Wonderland and the White Rabbit. As you guys know, I love Alice in Wonderland. And yeah, I'm actually really happy with how the outside of Ruby's home looks. I never really had too much of an issue with how her house's exterior looks, but we might change it up a bit today. I do remember in the old game she had a very cutesy looking house, so I'm excited to see what we can do with that. And to the left side of her house she has the big moon item with some rabbits looking up at the moon. This is one of my favourite places on my island because there's a beautiful fountain in front of it and you get a really lovely view of the moon from the bridge on the river nearby. So this is how the outside of her home looks, and I'm really excited to decorate the inside. So let's get into it. Okay, so today we're decorating Ruby's home. Then let's go over here and get her thoughts on the matter. And that about covers it. What do you think? Are you and Kay trusting Lulu with your home? Yes, of course that's okay. Better than okay. Oh my gosh, renovations. I'm so super excited, little ears. Oh, glad to hear it. Your house is in good hands. Leave everything to Lulu and me. We're gonna give Ruby the cutest house ever. Now then, did you want to start with the home's interior or its exterior? Or why don't we have a look at the exterior options today? Got it, then let's have a look at the catalogue together and you can tell me what you think looks best. Okay, so like I said before, I'm pretty much okay with how her home looks, but I've never really been a fan of the roof. So maybe we could change that today. Oh, we could even have a pink roof if we wanted. That's exciting. I'm thinking maybe we should go with like the White Rabbit theme on the house and keep the house very white. Although I do like this beige thatch roof. I think it goes really well with the windows. We could give her a blue house since her favourite colour is blue, but I really do want to stick with the white colours. And we can finally change the door. Now the door is the one thing I have had an issue with because I just think it looks too cold and sad looking. It's very plain. I think she would have a much more cutesy door. So we could keep the pink colour and change it up a little bit. I think this is how I'm going to keep her house. I think it's going to look so much cuter. And now let's move on to the interior. Alright, let's get down to business. Tell me what you have in mind for Ruby's home. Let me know when you're done. Okay, so here we are in Ruby's house, and as you can see, it's just full of random items. To be fair, her original home didn't look that much better than this, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't particularly have a problem with how her house looks in New Horizons, but I've always felt Ruby's home is a little empty and sad. Before we get into changing it, this is how her house looked in the old games. One of my favourite things about her house in Wild World and City Folk was that she had two lovely sofas in her house, so I really want to incorporate a pink sofa into this build so we can bring back memories of that for me. And then when it came to New Leaf, they really went all in with a space themed house, so much so that I think they lost the meaning of her house, but I'll get into that later. As you can see in the New Leaf house, they just put a lot of like spaceman furniture and a space rover and things like that. And then in New Horizons, they decided to go down the same route and do the same thing. But yeah, this is how our house looks at the moment. I can't wait to change it, so let's get into the speed build. Alright, so about Ruby's home. While you're watching me decorate, I'll just talk a bit about it. So I have always been a fan of the big moon item in Ruby's home. She's had this in all her homes, and I just think it very much defines her as a character. But I feel like they lost the meaning of her storyline and her theming as the games went on. They just really went with a whole moon space theme rather than a moon rabbit theme. So if you didn't know, Ruby's whole character is based around the story of the moon rabbit. Now this story differs depending on which part of Asia you're from. There's a different one in Japan and China. I'm not 100% sure which one Ruby is based off of, and when I tried to research this, there was no specific region I could find to show where she was based from. But I do know in City Folk she had mochi pestles in her house, and I do know mochi is a Japanese food, so I think that she's based off the tale of the moon rabbit from Japan. I would have liked to have seen them go more down that sort of theming, but I think they very much just looked at the moon in her house and just decided to go with space theme and put a load of astronauts and space rockets and things in her house, which I really don't think suit her at all. I have really fond memories of visiting her in City Folk, which is when I became closest with Ruby when I was younger. her, and I loved her lovely sofas so much. We don't actually have that furniture set in this game anymore, but we do have the cute furniture series, which is sort of similar. It has a lot of heart theming and pink theming, which is just like the lovely set, but I can't believe we have a new Animal Crossing game without the lovely set. It's truly blasphemous in my opinion. But yes, so with this house design, again, I didn't make a plan for this one. Again, big mistake. I should have tried to plan it out. I did think about planning it out, but then I literally couldn't think of anything, so I was like, maybe I should just go in and just do what I can. And because of that, I spent around 3 hours making this house. I'm not even exaggerating. Some of it I didn't record because I was just messing around with furniture placements for ages. And even still in the end of this, I'm a little bit iffy about how it turned out. I think it obviously looks so much better than it did before, but I really do think there were so many ways I could have decorated this differently, and I just really couldn't make up my mind how I wanted this to look. So the things I had in mind were, I wanted the colour scheme to go with the space starry wallpaper, and I wanted it to be very white with some pink and blue, because blue is Ruby's favourite colour, and I also think pink is one of her favourite colours considering she had bright pink sofas in the old games. Yeah, I also thought it would be fun to try and make the house match the exterior of her home a little bit as well. So I had a lot of things going on here, and let me tell you, this was the most difficult villager home I've done. I've said that I think in the last 3 videos. Apparently they're just getting more and more difficult for me. This one was especially difficult because she is my favourite villager, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me, especially, I don't think any of you are putting pressure on me, but I just have made up this pressure in my head that you're all expecting me to make the most amazing house for Ruby because she's my favourite villager. And so I was so stressed building this because I was like, everyone's waiting to see how I, the most biggest Ruby fan in the world, are going to make her house look, and I'm only going to disappoint you all. And that was my whole thoughts while I was building this. So if you are disappointed, please don't tell me because I'm already anxious enough as it is in my head, but I really do hope you like how it turns out. So as you can see, I thought about having the blue, white and pink wood planks on the floor, which basically incorporated all the colours I wanted to include in this house. And then I remembered we got that moon rug added in an update. I think that was quite a while back actually, but it looks more like a tortilla. So I never really used it in my house, but I thought, hey, actually this fits perfectly for Ruby's house, so maybe I should use that. One thing I will say about this house is I think I went really overboard with the colours. Like I said, I really wanted to include pink, white and blue, and doing all of this while having it match the starry wallpaper was very, very difficult. And in the end, I think I put way too much. For now, let's talk about the start of this build. So of course you can probably see me choosing a pink sofa. I looked through almost every single sofa item, I think, to see which pink one I like the most. It was very difficult and I do change it up a couple of times, but eventually I think I go with the mermaid sofa. The mermaid sofa actually wasn't in my original idea, but in the end it turned out to fit her house the most. And I think the mermaid sofa is really good actually because it does have a mermaid vibe to it, but it also just looks like a really beautiful pink sofa with a star cushion. So because of the star cushion, I was like, this matches this home so well. I know most people are going to associate it with the sea and mermaids rather than space, but I don't know, I just thought the colours fitted her so well. I ended up using that in the end. I really didn't expect to use any of the mermaid set in this house, but it turned out to work out really well, I think. So because I had no plan for this house, I then just started adding in a bunch of furniture that I thought suited Ruby. So I included the little twin stars coffee table, which I also have on the exterior of her home and her garden. I included the little twin stars wall clock, which I really love this item. I have this in my own house, I think, somewhere. Of course I had to include a Nova light, and I knew before I started building that I would definitely need the star clock, which you get from Celeste, just like the Nova light, but I didn't actually have the star clock. So I asked you guys on my Instagram if any of you would be able to quickly let me catalogue your star clock, and Raps came through and let me hop on over to his island and catalogue this item. So thank you so much, Raps, or Raps Face on Instagram. I'm so grateful. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to make this house, which is very important to me, so thank you so much. And so then I was having difficulty choosing a bed. Bringing in all these colours together was really difficult. Eventually I end up going with the classic bed, and I give her this musical note patterned bedding, which is really sweet, and I wanted to include it since Ruby is a peppy villager, so I know she loves singing and music, and so I thought that was a nice reference to that. Also, about this build, I completely understand why they went with the design design they did for Ruby's house in New Horizons. I actually don't have a problem with the way they decorated her home in New Horizons. I think it was pretty decent, but the problem arises when you start gifting Ruby items and suddenly her entire house doesn't look anything like how it did at the start. And one of the other issues I have is that she just has nothing to do in there. Like, there's been many times where I would visit Ruby and one of the other villagers will be visiting her, and the villagers just walk around and sit on the floor because there's no seats in her house, there's no bed in her house, and it makes me so sad. I know she's a moon rabbit and she lives on the moon, but I still want her to have a nice bed, somewhere nice to sit. And one thing that was inspiring me was a book I read recently. So I read a book recently called Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan, and basically it's a retelling of the Mid-Autumn legend. It's inspired by the legend of Chang'e, the moon goddess, and it's all about Chinese mythology. And by the way, if you're a reader and you're interested in this book, it's a fantasy story, it's wonderful, and it's actually one of the most beautiful pieces of writing I've ever read. So I definitely recommend this book. There is a second one coming out soon, but yeah, I really love this book. I love it so much that I was very inspired by the first chapter of the book, where basically the author describes what it's like living on the moon, and she describes all the furniture as being like cinnamon wood and very white. I don't know, when I imagined it, because of her writing, the way I imagined it in my head was just so gorgeous, and I did think for a long time about how I could include this idea as Ruby's house, because I thought having her house very white and golden with like really beautiful wood tones would be gorgeous, but it's so difficult to incorporate this idea in Animal Crossing, especially with the lack of furniture items we have. I know we do have a lot of furniture items in the game, but I'd really love some new items, especially for something like Ruby's house. I completely understand why they didn't add usable items into Ruby's home like a bed and a sofa and a kitchen, because trying to bring in that interior feeling with a massive moon in the middle of the room is so incredibly difficult. At one point I even considered not including the huge moon item at all, and I tried to build like this for a very long time, but I don't know, it just felt wrong to make Ruby's house and not have the moon item. So don't worry, in the end she does still have the moon in her house. It's not in the center of the room because I tried to include it that way, but it was just cutting off the room in all the wrong places and there was no room for anything. I forgot to talk about what I was doing at the start of the build, but I was thinking about having the moon at the back of the room with some added walls and pillars inside to make it like if you look out the window you see the ginormous moon. But unfortunately, because we have such a limited space in villagers' homes on our island, it was completely cutting off the room and there would have been no space for a bed, a sofa and everything like that. So basically one of the main struggles of this was trying to fit everything in. I really wanted it to feel like Ruby and I wanted it to feel like the moon, and it's all very difficult, to be honest with you. I'm really grateful for the Sanrio furniture items. If you don't have the Sanrio furniture items in your game, I'm so sorry, because they're such wonderful items. Like this little Twin Stars coffee table is so cute. The My Melody little side table is one of my favorite items in the game. It's so adorable with the little heart-shaped tablecloth on the top, and especially because it has My Melody on the side and she is a bunny rabbit, I just think it suits Ruby really well. I also included these furniture items in Chelsea's house. Chelsea, the deer with the rabbit ears. If you've watched that video, I'm sure you already know, but because Chelsea's such a big fan of rabbits, I included a lot of those items in her house since she's the My Melody villager in Animal Crossing as well. So I think I told you guys earlier that in City Folk she had a lot of mochi pestles in her house. Also, I don't know how to say that word, pestle? I have no idea how you say that word, so I apologise if I'm saying it wrong. They're these things that people use to make mochi. I did plan on including those in this house, but it was something I did eventually have to take out in the end. I would have really liked to include it, but there just wasn't enough room in the house to include it without it looking extremely cluttered, which I will admit the house does end up looking very cluttered in the end. But I think if you've watched any of my fairy core home designs, you know that clutter is sometimes the only way to get across a magical feeling, and I really did want Ruby's house to feel magical. Something I thought would be nice to include is a telescope, and I really wanted to be sure to put the telescope by the window so she could look outside at the stars. This is something that one of my other favourite villagers, Daisy, used to have in her home in Wild World, and oh my goodness, I'd really love to redecorate Daisy's house. I'm thinking about inviting her to Happy Home Paradise and making her house she used to have in Wild World, because her house used to be so cute, and I remember specifically she had a telescope looking out the window and I was so obsessed. I would always go to her house and click on the telescope, and I also put a telescope in my own house in Wild World, I remember now, and I would like to at night time go in my house and click on the telescope and imagine I'm looking out at the stars. I realise now I could have just looked out the window at real stars, but you know, child me was living vicariously through my Animal Crossing villager the same as present me, so unfortunately we don't actually have a mochi food item in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I wasn't sure which food items to include in a house for a while. Eventually I go with these, so I think they're called Berliner. They're a donut with jam, filling and vanilla icing, and they're a German donut. Thought that these were so cute. I also have these on a little tea table nearby the river by her house as well, and I think they're just a really cute item, and I like that they bring in some more pink into the room. Another little item I really wanted to include in this home was her camera. So she didn't actually have this item in her house, but some of you may not know this, but if you read about Ruby, her goal for her career is to be a photographer, which I think is so cute, and so I wanted to make a reference to that by including a camera in her home. I don't think it really goes with the house very well, but I was so desperate to include so many things. As you guys know, I love Ruby so much, and I just wanted to include every single tiny aspect of her personality and our own personal story together. I think that's why this house turned out being just a mismatch of everything all squished together into one home. And I know I just keep saying bad things about this house, but I do think it looks nice in the end. I'm just a bit concerned that it's not what any of you were expecting it to look like, because I know when I finished building it I was like, this doesn't look like anything I pictured in my head that I would decorate Ruby's house like, because it's so much more colourful than I expected. I was expecting to go for a very white neutral theme, which I definitely would love to come back and try do, but I'd been building for like 3 hours like I said, and I was like, oh my goodness, I just need to finish this build because I've been doing this for way too long. I was getting a headache. Should I have stepped away from the game and come back? Maybe. But it's okay, we always have the opportunity to rebuild her house in Happy Home Paradise, and then I can take ideas from that if I like how it looks. Yeah, there's always a chance to change up these homes, which I'll always be sure to show you, whether it's in a video all by itself or in my Animal Crossing New Horizons gameplay videos. I would actually really like some feedback on this house. Please don't tell me it looks bad or anything, but if you have any furniture items you think I should have included, or a different way of laying it out that you think would have looked better, or any sort of interior design styles you think would have suited her home better, please let me know in the comments on Instagram or Twitter. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one because it's my favourite villager's house and I really just want it to look as good as it can. Maybe that's why I'm so worried that this one looks bad, because she's my favourite and maybe nothing I make will ever be good enough for her. But yeah, feel free to give me feedback. I'd love to hear it, as long as you're not being cruel, because I do get some mean comments sometimes, which I don't appreciate. They're not from any of you guys, I just get random people come on my videos and be rude, which is always nice. It makes me feel so happy. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. So one thing that I thought was a pretty cute idea was to have the bunny figurine looking out of the telescope, but eventually I changed the bunny figurine to be sat on a cute little pillow, which I was actually really happy with this idea because then it means that you can still access the telescope. I also just really like the idea of the rabbit being the centre of the room. So I was struggling for a little while of how I wanted her kitchen to look. I thought about adding a big dining room table rather than this small one with the flowery tablecloth on. Eventually I stick with the smaller table with the tablecloth because it matches the one on the outside of her home, and I love the colours on this one. The little flowery pattern is one of my favourite patterns in the game, so I really wanted to include that. One thing I was thinking about including was a clothing rack or a lot of fashion or vanity type items, since Ruby is my only peppy villager on my island. But again, unfortunately I just couldn't make this fit in with the room. Creating a house with a massive moon item is so difficult. I think I already said that, but it really was a struggle to fit in so many items along with the ginormous moon item. One thing I really liked that I was able to include was the little cherry blossom bonsai on top of the fridge. I think this item goes with Ruby's theming so well, and I love that it brings in some plants into the space and just a lovely little pop of pink into the room. So another thing I really tried my best to get right was the music in her house. Growing up, Ruby always had KK Ska playing in her house, so I always associate that music with her. But after putting this song on the stereo in her home, I realised it doesn't actually suit the vibe of her house very much, and so I tried changing it to be playing on a music box, but even then I didn't like it, and I felt the music box item looked a bit strange in the house. One thing about the music box item is I love how it looks closed, but unfortunately if you're having music play out of it, it opens and then I don't think it's as cute anymore, which really sucks actually. I would love for it to play music while still being closed. So eventually I do actually change the music in her house to be Stale Cupcakes, which is also the song playing outside her house. I think I've just had this song playing on the outside of her home for so long that I now just associate it with her, and I think it has a really nice vibe for a quiet space home, so I do include that song in the end. And then for an extra special touch, I also added sound effects to the home with a healing sound effect. I thought about adding the space ones, but they sounded really like alien-y and weird, like all the weird whooshing sound effects I thought made the home feel really weird. So I tried the healing sound effect, and I just think it sounds so magical and lovely when you go into Ruby's house. You guys will hear that at the end of the speed build when you get to see the tour, and I was really happy with this decision. It makes me feel so happy now whenever I walk into her house and I can just hear all this lovely healing sounds. This is actually the first villager home of mine where I've included those extra sound effects you get in Happy Home Paradise, other than Drift, who I gave jungle sound effects in his home, which I don't think I've shown you guys Drift and Barbara's home on the channel because I already made videos back before Happy Home Paradise released showing you how I'd like to decorate their home if we had the option, and then they actually gave us the option. But hopefully in my next gameplay video I'll get a chance to show you how I decorated their homes. I did post screenshots on my Instagram story back when I did it, but I'm sure a lot of you missed them, so yeah, I'll be sure to try include that in my next gameplay video, which by the way will hopefully be soon. It's the 1st of November today, so the mushroom recipes are back in the game. We're coming up closer to Christmas now, and as you guys know, I love to do Christmas gameplay videos. Not only that, but I still need the mushroom lamp recipe. A few of you have said that you will gift it to me, but I am going to try it again this year, so maybe I'll make a video just trying to unlock this recipe. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. So back to the build. One thing I really wished I was able to include in this house was more wall accessories. I really wish there was like glowing stars you could like place on the walls, because I would love to place like yellow and pink and white star lamp items all over the walls, because I really think that would help blend in the space wallpaper with the regular white wallpaper in the room. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that in the game. The closest thing we have is the fairy lights, which I did include in the end, and then I just kept going with them. I think I included way too many. I think I went so overboard. This is why I think I went so overboard. I think it's because of the fairy lights. I just don't know when to stop with the fairy lights. I have to be honest with you. I did put a tweet out a little while after building this saying I literally have no clue how minimalist Animal Crossing builders do it. If you build minimalist stuff in Animal Crossing and you're watching this, please tell me how in the comments. I am so amazed by people who make these like super cute homes that aren't messy, because I feel like whenever I'm trying to make something look good, it ends up messy. But I've always been this way. I think I have a bit of messy handwriting, and I've always noticed that my drawings and my art is a little bit messier compared to those who were in my art class growing up as well. I remember my childhood friend Alex. I was always so jealous of her because she could have really neat handwriting, and when she drew things and made things in class, they were always so neat, and for me they're always so messy. But I am a creative person. Everything looks like a mess when I make it, I think. So yeah, if you make neat and tidy minimalist stuff that still has a perfect vibe that you're going for, I'm so jealous of you. But like I said at the beginning, I think I just was so excited that I was building Ruby's house. I wanted to include everything. Maybe I went a bit overboard, so let me know if you think it's a bit too much. I definitely think I'll come back and change her house now and then. I think it would be fun to decorate it for different seasons. Let me know, are you planning to renovate your villagers' homes for the different seasons? Maybe you redecorated all their homes for Halloween? I'd be really interested to know about that. And let me know if you're going to be redecorating them for Christmas. I'm thinking about renovating their homes just a little bit, maybe at Christmas time, just adding a Christmas tree or two in their houses. I'm not too sure though, but I think it would be really nice for the Jingle Toy Day event to actually see little Christmas trees and things in their house when you visit them. Okay, so now you're probably seeing the house come together. One thing I will say about this house is because of the space wallpaper at the back of the room, I did start to feel like the house looked a bit like a set, like not a real house. But looking back at it now, I'm like, actually it looks fine. This seems to be the case of all of my builds recently. While I'm building them, I'm like, that doesn't look right, it looks like a mess. But while I'm watching it back, I'm like, it looked absolutely fine. I have no idea what I was going on about. Something that was super fun was getting to include the mobile item in this game. You guys know how much I love that item, especially when I get to customize it to be pink with stars and moons. I thought that item suited Ruby's house so well. So we've made a jump forward in the speed build now, and I now have a different rug, which is this beautiful blue rug with constellations all over it. I actually had no idea that I had this rug. I can't even remember where it's from in the game, but I found it in my furniture items. I was like, oh my goodness, this is actually so perfect. And then I also changed her flooring back to the moon flooring, which I think really brought everything together. I think I was struggling with the interior flooring, it wasn't fitting right with the starry wallpaper, but once I changed it back to the moon flooring, it felt very much like Ruby's house again, so I was really happy with that change. And basically from here on out, I'm just struggling with the placement of items. I would have loved for the moon item to be in the center of the room, and maybe I will come back and try to do that again in the future, but in the end of this build I had to put the moon item in the corner of the house, but I was just grateful that I was able to include it at all because I was really struggling with it. I decided to add a little pink mat in the kitchen area, which I really like, and at this point I felt like all the colours in the house are really coming together really beautifully. One of my favourite things to do, especially in houses like this that include a lot of items that are glowing, for example the Nova light and the starry clock, is to turn all the lights off in the house because I think it makes everything so beautiful, especially when you visit at night time. It's gorgeous, so I'd really recommend doing this if you're struggling with the lighting in your villagers' homes. I do find the lighting can sometimes be a bit too abrasive and you visit their houses and you're like, oh my goodness, it's so bright. I do recommend just turning the lights off completely, only if they have lamps and things in their house though, because you don't want to turn all the lights off and then visit them at night time and they're in a pitch black room. That would be terrifying. So make sure they have lamps and things in the house so you can still see them, and it makes the house look gorgeous, especially at sunset time. It looks really beautiful, especially if you have a lot of lamps and things in the house. So yeah, that's my little tip for you today. One item I was very happy to include in this house was the little shelf with the bunny plushie on. I just think it's so adorable. I was really happy to include such a cute item in Ruby's house. I definitely think it's something she would love, and it just made me so happy to include it. Now you just see me add more plants and little pops of colour around the place. I gave her these blue pots with vines growing above the windows, a little shelf in the kitchen. I decided to get rid of her camera in the end and give her a little slice of carrot cake and some tea. Since she's a rabbit, I think her specialty is carrot cake. Then I was adjusting the lighting a little bit, so I have it very low and dark blue themed, which I think made the house feel so magical. Then I went through and polished all the items, made everything very sparkly and glowy, and of course added the final sound effects. But yeah, I've been rambling for so long now, so I'll leave you be and give you back to past me, who'll give you a tour of the finished home. So here we are in Ruby's finished house, and I love this so much. It looks so magical. I'm so happy with how this looks, everyone. I really hope you like how it looks. So we went for a very dark blue colour scheme in this house, and I got to include an item in the house that I also included in Fangs, which is the Starry Night painting, which is so nice to have my two favourite villagers have a matching item in their house. So as you can see, she has a beautiful pink record player and a little Autumn's Bounty lamp. She has some plants hanging off the wall, her painting of course, and she has these very light items all around the place, which I think makes everything feel so magical. It may be a bit much, but I think it makes the lighting in here look so good. So over here she has her gorgeous little sofa and her moon clock, and of course her huge moon item, which I think just looks amazing. It's so bright and pretty, and I think she would just be obsessed with it. She has her carrot cake and tea over here, along with the Nova light and a tiny little starry clock on the floor, which I think looks like fairy dust or big star drops, meteors that have fallen down. Over here is her small little bedroom area, so she has a cute little Stars and Moon mobile, her little shelf with perfume and bunny plushies on it, her starry clock once again, which I was really wanting to include in this house, and I was so glad I was able to include it. She also has her telescope to look out the window, and then over here is her small kitchen area. She just has a white fridge and a white oven with an adorable little teapot, cherry blossom bonsai, and her lovely little snacks on her table. I'm really happy with all the stuff I managed to fit into this home, especially considering I had to include the massive moon item. I was really worried I wouldn't be able to include a kitchen and a bedroom and a seating area, but I managed to fit it all in, which I'm really happy about. And I was so glad I was able to include some more pink in her home. I do think she would definitely have a very beautiful pink home like this, as well as space theme home. And it was just so nice now to visit her and see a nice pink sofa in her house once again, just like how it would be when I used to visit her in City Folk. I especially love in this house the healing sounds. They sound so lovely with these lovely sounds in the background. It's making me want to include these in my own home in the game. I struggled a bit with the placement of furniture items, but I ended up with this in the end because now you can still walk around the house. Ruby can still walk around the house. She can access her sofa, she can sit at the table, she can access the oven, and she can access her bed still, which I thought was really important. I want to see her interacting with furniture in her house. I don't want it to just be for display. So I'm really happy with that. Maybe I'll change this at some point in the future, but for now I think this looks a lot better than it did originally. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments. thoughts. I'm really happy I was finally able to decorate Ruby's home. Let me know if you'd like to see me build her Happy Home Paradise request, which I think is a very similar theme to this, but we could go all out and make her a huge house, and we get to decorate the exterior as well. So let me know if that's something you'd like to see, and let me know what you think of her finished home. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to see any of your own creations if you've built Ruby a house on your own island. I'm sure some of you have built a completely different type of home for her, which I'd really love to see since she's my favourite. So feel free to tag me in pictures of your own creations on Instagram or Twitter, but I think this turned out pretty cute in the end. So that's it for today, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm so happy we were able to finally build Ruby's house. It ended up being so much more bright and colourful than I expected, but I do think it's so much better than it was originally. I definitely think it feels more like Ruby's house now, rather than just a space house. So before I go for today, I do just want to say an extra special thank you to my wonderful Patreon supporters for supporting me this month, especially my little flowers and little fairies. You are all the sweetest angels, and your support helps me out so much. I know I pretty much say the same thing every single video, but it's true, and I'll forever be grateful for all of you, so thank you all so much. And to the rest of you, thank you all so much for the support on my videos recently. Every comment means so much to me, so please do let me know in the comments how you're doing today, what you've been up to. I may not get the chance to respond to every single one, but I do read every single one, and I'm always so happy to hear from any of you. Hope you're all having a super lovely and cozy day. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, only if you want to though. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!